An Outlaw Thanksgiving by Arnold McCully. The Chicago and Rock Island Express roared into Omaha, Nebraska, one November day in 1896. Clara Mayer was the first one off, eager for a gulp of fresh air after 2 days in the sooty rail car. Clara and her mother had come halfway on a journey that had begun in New York State. The day after tomorrow, they would meet Papa in Utah and go on to a new life in California. Her mother hurried into the station to freshen up. Clara set off to explore. "Keep your eyes peeled, coming west," Papa had written. "Out here, you never know what will happen next." She had heard a hubbub of strange languages and accents. Emigrants and roughnecks rubbed elbows with travelers in fine clothing. Clara spotted a poster on one wall. "Pinkerton's National Detective Agency wanted $4,000 reward for train robbery, cattle rustling, bank robbery, Robert Leroy Parker, alias Butch Cassidy." "I'd sure like to meet him," said a voice. Clara turned in surprise to find the newsboy from the train. "Butch Cassidy? But he's an outlaw," she said. "No worse than the robber barons who run these railways," the boy replied with a grin. "Anyway, I think I'd like Butch Cassidy. They say he's awfully good-hearted. Gives some of what he steals to needy folks. Never killed nobody either." "Well, the Pinkertons are after him," Clara said. "Butch ain't afraid of the law or anything else," the boy said. Clara wanted to hear more, but Mama had found her. "Clara, you worry me so." She glanced at the poster and shuddered. "It's time to transfer to the Union Pacific train," she went on. "I bought some sandwiches for our supper." The prairie outside Omaha was as vast as an ocean. Clara stared at it in awe. To stretch her legs, she made her way to the water cooler. Other people drank from the cup the railroad put out, but Mama insisted Clara use the cup she'd brought along. Mama worried about germs, strangers, and train wrecks. Lamps came on and the sun sank below the endless horizon. People took out their picnic suppers. A few played cards. Clara and Mama wrapped up their pillows and blankets. They drifted off to sleep to the clackety-clack of the wheels. In the morning, everything was white. Snow fell in thick, churning flakes. "Snowed nearly all night," the conductor said. "We've lost some time." Mama fretted over the news. Across from them, a man was playing a card game. He looked over and said, "Hope they make it up. I've got a big Thanksgiving dinner to get to." "We'll be with Papa on Thanksgiving Day," said Clara. "We haven't seen him for months. He went to California to start his new business." The man tipped his hat to Mama. "Clara, we don't know him," her mother whispered. But Clara thought she'd made a friend. He told her his name was Mr. Jones. In the afternoon, the train lost speed as if exhausted. Finally, with a shudder, it stopped. The conductor hurried past. "We're snowbound," he announced. "Big drifts blocking us. We'll send for a plow as soon as it stops snowing." "Mercy," Clara's mother said. "My husband expects us in Ogden tomorrow." "You won't make it," said Mr. Jones. Mama clutched Clara's hand. "Don't worry, Papa will wait for us," Clara assured her. They sat in the car all day, huddled in their blankets, trying to make their food last. The snow stopped the next morning, but the car was bitterly cold. Through the frosted window, Clara could see mountains ahead. "We'd better get moving soon," a well-dressed passenger remarked. "If one of those train robbers took a fancy to us, we'd be sitting ducks." Mama gasped. They heard bells jangling. A sleigh drew alongside the train. "All aboard for the Hotel and Saloon Rest in Peace, Rock Springs," the driver hollered. Another sleigh arrived. "Jump on for the Dusty Dude Hotel and Dance Hall, Green River. Wait for the train in the lap of luxury." "Mama, let's go to a hotel," Clara cried. People were streaming from the train to board the sleighs. "Goodness, no," Mama said. "They'll have bedbugs and all sorts of riffraff." "We've got to go. You've got to go, ma'am, or freeze to death," Mr. Jones said gently. A smaller sled had arrived. "Where do you want to go?" the driver hollered. Mr. Jones shouted, "I'll give you $50 to take me to Brown's Hole." "Get in," cried the driver exuberantly. Mr. Jones turned to Mama. "Come with me to Brown's Hole, ma'am. It's just over the border in Utah. We're respectable ranchers down there. You'll get a real Thanksgiving dinner while you wait for the train to move. It'll be a few days before they can dig it out." Mama sighed. We haven't any choice. Thank you, Mr. Jones. It seemed they had traveled for hours when Mamma called out, How much longer will it take us to get to Brown's Hole, Mr. Jones? His voice trailed back to them. A day and a half, I reckon, just in time for our dinner. Mamma turned white with shock. Even to Clara, snow stinging her cheeks, it seemed Mr. Jones had played a terrible joke on them, but there was no way out of it now. The runners hissed and scraped. After darkness fell, they found themselves in a cabin where a gruff woman put them to bed. At dawn, she gave them coffee and biscuits before they set off again. At last, they emerged from a canyon into a wide valley. The sun warmed them as they pulled up to the log house where the dinner would be held. A man bounded out. Welcome to Brand's Hole, wayfarers, he said in the thick Scots brogue. I'm John Jarvie. Howdy, Jones. Didn't think you'd make it. We were all snowbound on the train, Mr. Jones said. He introduced Mamma and Clara to Jarvie, the local storekeeper. You're brave pilgrims, Jarvie said to Mamma, and you're just in time. Some of our old cowhands are giving a banquet today for the residents of Brown's Hole. People streamed from the house to see who had come. Let me introduce our hosts, said Jarvie. Ladies, meet Bill, Les, Elsa, Isam, Bob, and Harry. Clara was startled. Sure she had seen one of the men somewhere before. Bob bowed low and kissed Mamma's hand. That brooch is just becoming, ma'am, he said. Such refined manners, Mamma whispered to Clara. He looks familiar, doesn't he? I can't imagine where we could have met him. A woman in a silk dress wished up to them. I'm Anne Bassett. I'm famished, and I reckon you are too, she said, opening the door. Inside were long tables set with gleaming china, silver, and crystal. My, Mamma exclaimed. While Elsa passed the relish tray, John Jarvie took up an accordion. He played and the guests sang, Then You'll Remember Me. Anne Bassett delivered a short talk on the meaning of Thanksgiving. I coached her myself, Jarvie said. Bob and the other hosts retired to the kitchen and could be seen scooping food onto platters. Their voices carried into the room. You carve, Les. No, let Elsa. Elsa's all thumbs. Well, do I start at the neck or the tail? Jarvie tapped his glass. Let us give thanks for our beloved Brown's Hole, for this magnificent feast, and for America, land of the free, he declared. Hear, hear, everyone called. Mr. Jones winked at Clara from across the table. She felt as if he had led them into a dream, strange and familiar at the same time. Clara ate everything. Oysters, cranberries, turkey with chestnut stuffing, mashed potatoes with giblet gravy, sweet potatoes, cabbage, beets, beans, cream peas, celery, pickled walnuts and sweet pickles, olives, fresh tomatoes on crisp lettuce, hot rolls and sweet butter, cheese, pumpkin pie, plum pudding, mince, and salted nuts. It was the biggest and best meal she'd ever had. Bob bustled about, offering second helpings and thirds and even fourths. But when he came out with coffee, Isom yelled, Ain't you never served a formal meal before? You properly pour it from the right. Well, you know how sorry my aim is, Isom, Bob answered. The important thing is to hit the cup. Etiquette can put fear into the bravest man's heart, said Miss Bassett. Mamma laughed with the rest, but Clara, staring at Bob, heard a sudden echo. He ain't afraid of the law or anything else. That face on the poster, Robert Leroy Parker. Bob was Butch Cassidy, and his friends, they must be outlaws too. She glanced at Mamma, who seemed to have forgotten all her worries. Clara must keep her from finding out they'd been led to a den of thieves. Poor Mamma, she'd faint dead away if she knew. John Jarvie got out his fiddle and struck up Turkey in the Straw. People danced. Clara watched to see who Bob Butch would choose for a partner. He came straight for her. He bowed. May I have this dance? He asked. Clara stared at him. His blue eyes twinkled. She had to be brave for Mamma's sake. Mr. Cassidy, are you going to rob our train? She blurted. Butch roared with laughter. I saw right away that you were sharp, he said. How did you know who I was? I saw your picture on a poster, Clara said. Well, a poster don't tell the whole story of a man, Butch said. We've all worked as cowhands here. These people have been good to us, and we're just saying thanks today. He winked. We won't rob your train. I wouldn't want to scare your mama after she's had such a nice time. They danced a polka, whirling around the room until Clara was dizzy. The dancing lasted all night. At the end of the party, Butch Cassidy took Clara's hand and closed it around a brand new silver dollar. Take this to remember the great Thanksgiving banquet at Brown's Hole, he said. The dollar was warm in her fist. She wondered how he'd gotten it. "Thank you," she said. "I'll never spend it." Clara and Mama stayed with John Jarvie's family. 2 days later, a messenger arrived with word that the track had been cleared. Jarvie's mail sled took them back to the train. When they finally saw Papa, they poured out the story of their unexpected Thanksgiving feast. "Everyone made us so welcome," Mama told him. "I'm sure they did," Papa said. "People are like that out here. Well, I miss Thanksgiving, but I'm mighty thankful we're safely together." "So am I," Clara said. Should she tell Papa they'd been guests of Butch Cassidy and a gang of outlaws, she wondered. "I'll tell him when we get to California," she decided, "and I'll keep my eyes peeled the rest of the way west. Out here, you never know what will happen next."